Greetings, my liege. It is I, Grimnar, son of Valnar, and today is the final of 3 lessons focusing on combat, all about the psychology of combat, following in the How to Rule a Kingdom 101 lesson series. I assume you've watched the combat lessons previously, and now we can tie in how all that stabbing, hitting, slashing, wounding, poking, and prodding affects your people. The horrors that your people must face, as well as the sheer carnage and butchery on the battlefield, can cause a unit to be consumed with fear and panic, forcing them to run and flee from the enemy. When certain conditions are met, in particular in the move or combat phases, a unit may be forced to make a fear test. If a fear test is failed, the unit must immediately make a flee move, and in the following move phases must attempt to rally those units back into command, or else they'll continue to flee and may flee off the table completely. Psychology is a rule that governs any unit with the psychology special rule, in particular most units belonging to the human factions. Human races have a standard leadership value of 3. Magic, special rules, your king, and certain items, abilities, upgrades, and spells can give a bonus or penalty to a unit's leadership value, or to those units around them. In the rare case a monster needs to make a fear test, their leadership is 4. To take a fear test, roll a die 6. If you roll equal to or under the unit's leadership, plus or minus any modifiers, the test is passed and the unit may play on as normal. However, if the test is failed, the unit flees from their position and makes an immediate flee move. Now it may seem strange, my liege, but I've compiled a list of things and situations that are acceptable reasons for your units to flee. They are as follows. A fearful enemy. At the start of your move phase, if any of your units are in contact with a fear-causing unit, they must take a fear test. Units with the fear special rule, scary things, ignore other units that also cause fear. They ignore other scary things. Heavy casualties. Not many units can withstand having at least half of their comrades blasted into fragments all at once. Thus, whenever a unit suffers 3 or more unsaved wounds in a single phase, they must take a fear test. The no hope in hell rule. At the start of your move phase, if your unit only has 1 rune remaining and is in contact with infantry, cavalry, or a monstrous unit with more than 3 runes remaining, your unit must make an immediate fear test. Sometimes even your units know that there is no hope in hell. Partially surrounded. At the start of your move phase, any of your units that have enemy units on 3 of their flanks, front, rear, left, or right flank, must take a fear test. Note, enemy units that are on your unit's flanks must not be in contact with any other units hostile to them, otherwise they may not count towards partially surrounding your unit. And then finally, there is completely surrounded. At the start of your move phase, any of your units that have enemy units on all 4 of their flanks, front, rear, left, and right flanks of the unit's arc, must take a fear test. If the test is failed, the unit is removed from play, completely cut down in the panic of trying to escape. However, if it is parsed, you may select 1 unit in contact with your unit, pivot to it, and immediately fight to the death with that unit. Fight to the death is a term used on occasion and means exactly that. That those 2 units are singled out and take combat turns back and forth until one is slain. Then the game resumes as normal. When a unit fails a fear test, they must immediately out of turn make a flee move and may not move or use a command for the rest of the turn. When making a flee move, the unit must move die 6 directly towards the nearest edge of the table that has not got an enemy model blocking the direct route to it. Cavalry and flying units move 2d6 instead of d6. Fleeing units must move around enemy buildings, any defensive buildings, and impassable terrain. Units may flee through other terrain features with their usual penalties, and may flee through resource sites and trenches as if they were open ground. Now, if an enemy was to ever catch a fleeing troop, my liege, they could use their command to completely cut down that enemy, tearing it to shreds and removing it from play. If a unit flees off the edge of a table, it's considered killed and out of the game. Hopefully, my liege, your units do rally before they flee completely off the table. A unit that is fleeing must attempt to rally at the start of their next move phase. To rally, the unit must pass a fear test. If the test is passed, the unit immediately rallies and can move and attack as normal, and ignores all future fear tests until the start of their next turn. If the test is failed, the unit must make another fear move and may attempt to rally again at the following move phase. This flee move, test to rally, flee will keep happening until a unit rallies or flees off the table completely. And that's all there is to know about humans. Mostly terrified quivering heaps on the battlefield. Well, that's what Piddlesworth does anyway. Now, my liege, that completes the main lessons about the core rules of Swords and Stones. Skull! But there is always more to learn in the art of war. Why don't we head over to the armory next lesson and look at the various rules and restrictions associated with weapons and armor? Or I can summon Piddlesworth to take you through healing, repairing units and buildings, taking prisoners and converting units. Or perhaps you need some magic to spice up your life, my liege. I'll get the resident caster to walk you through the casting magic basics. Perhaps you'd like to go for a tour of the kingdom. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And look out for our upcoming playlist, The Kingdom Walkthrough, that goes through every building, rule by rule, discussing their importance and their role in your kingdom. Onward, my liege.